everybody. I just watched the 2016 Godzilla movie called Shin Godzilla. It's a Japanese Godzilla movie, not to be confused with the American Godzilla movie. And because I feel it is much more than just, your regular monster movie, your regular Godzilla movie, I want to talk about it a little because for a Godzilla movie, it actually has some inner meaning, and a lot of people in the West they don't really get it. So I'll try to explain it a little. Try to explain well what my interpretation of it. So of course, when I talk about this now, it will contain spoilers. So spoiler alert. So first off, this really isn't your typical monster movie. It's more of a disaster movie. it's like a disaster movie masquerading as a monster movie. Or actually, it's more like a political satire masquerading as a disaster movie, masquerading as a monster movie. So it's actually very deep, and I'll try to explain it a little. So first off, this is really not a monster movie because the monster part is entirely symbolical, and you have to view it in that symbolical light to understand it. And this goes back to the very first Godzilla movie, which actually was also symbolical. And the first Godzilla movie came out shortly after World War II, and shortly after the US used the nuclear bombs on Japan, and also very shortly, or I think it was even during the same year that the first Godzilla movie came out, the US did nuclear bomb tests. And after World War II, they continued nuclear bomb tests relatively close to Japan. And I think it was the same year that the first Godzilla movie came out. And even in those nuclear bomb tests, Japanese civilians were killed. So it was at that time that the first Godzilla movie came out, and it was, of course, it was the Japanese way of dealing with the effects caused by nuclear weapons. And so the first Godzilla really was a symbol for the destructive effect of a nuclear weapon. And likewise, the new Godzilla movie, the new Japanese Godzilla movie now, comes out shortly after the Fukushima disaster, and that also was a very destructive disaster for Japan, and it also killed a lot of Japanese civilians, and it was also a nuclear disaster. So the new Godzilla movie is a symbol for that. It's the entire movie basically is a symbol for the 2011 Fukushima disaster. And it starts with Godzilla himself. This Godzilla is somewhat different from the previous Godzillas. This Godzilla has several stages, and those stages resemble the stages of the 2011 Fukushima disaster, because it started out with an earthquake. That earthquake caused a tsunami, which at first was at sea, of course, and then the tsunami traveled to land. And of course, the Japanese, they have flood walls, or whatever you call them. They have walls, you know, in cases like that, so that their cities don't get flooded. But of course, the tsunami, you know, flooded those flood walls. You know, it just went over those flood walls. It didn't stop the tsunami at all. And yeah, and it just and then the wave just continued to travel inward, and destroyed a lot of buildings, and killed a lot of people, and yeah. And then of course the final stage is the nuclear disaster. And because of the earthquake, the Fukushima nuclear reactors went unstable, and there was you know, and radiation started to leak. So the final stage was nuclear. It's the same with Godzilla. He has the exact same stages. He starts off water-based, like the tsunami. Then he starts to come on land, and just like with the flood walls, officials are saying, "Oh no, you know, he can't come on land. That's impossible. He won't come on land. You know, we're protected. He isn't able to come on land." And of course, he does. he travels on land and causes the same kind of destruction that the tsunami caused. And you can see that, you know, when he first comes on land, and when he causes, he also causes a lot of waves, just like the tsunami. And you see cars floating down the street, just like with the tsunami. And he destroys buildings and cars, and you know, just in the exact same way that the tsunami destroyed them. And he continues to travel inward, just like the tsunami. So that's his you know, his next stage is land-based, and then his final stage is the nuclear stage, where he starts using his famous radioactive breath, you know, to just level everything inside and turn everything into an inferno. And a lot of people are puzzled about the end, and the end is also just like, you know, the way he's defeated. It's just like the way they were dealing with the Fukushima reactors that were unstable, and they used those big trucks and big cranes to pump coolant fluid into the Fukushima nuclear reactors to prevent a nuclear meltdown. And that's the exact same way that Godzilla is defeated in this movie. And it's even the exact same trucks, and it's the exact same cranes, and that's the way they're defeating him. Is they pump coolant fluid into him. Because in this movie he isn't only a symbol for a nuclear reactor, he is a literal nuclear reactor. So they defeat him by pumping coolant fluid into him. So you can see all of this is symbolical for the Fukushima disaster. And also it pokes fun at the way the officials are handling the disaster. And basically it's saying, you know, that because of all that unnecessary bureaucracy, you know, it just slows it slows down the response against a disaster like that. So they're also poking fun, you know, at Japanese officials, at Japanese bureaucracy, and the way they handled the Fukushima disaster. And it even goes a step further, because of course Godzilla in this movie is entirely symbolical for natural disasters, but in a way the movie is also saying that those natural disasters could have been prevented, or might not even have happened if it weren't for people. So it's not only it's saying that, of course, it is a natural disaster. Godzilla is symbolical for a natural disaster, but maybe some aspects of that are also man-made. So, in essence, it was also a man-made natural disaster, so to speak. And as I said, a lot of people are confused about the ending. I'll try to explain it a bit. Those trucks that I just mentioned, that are pumping the coolant fluid into Godzilla, they are called Hydra Slayers. And Hydra, of course, and so basically at the end of the movie, Godzilla is referred to as Hydra, and Hydra is basically a dragon, a type of dragon from Greek mythology. It's very similar to the concept of that evil red dragon, that is mentioned in Christianity. And actually, there is one scene, when Godzilla is at the height of his rampage, at the height of his destruction. He just looks like that evil red dragon, or like some kind of demon that just came straight out of hell, to wreak havoc on mankind, and just breathing an infernal flame, and just and turning the entire city into an inferno. Godzilla is also an evil dragon, which of course also is symbolical, and it is like a Hydra, and Hydra is very similar to, as I said, to that concept of an evil dragon. And so I read, I looked up Hydra in Wikipedia, and it says that that in this is important, that Hydra has the ability to reproduce himself. So Hydra has several heads. So when one of his head is chopped off, he would just regrow another head. And it also says that Hydra has a poisonous breath, just like Godzilla, and that even his blood, its blood, that even its blood is poisonous, and that even just the scent of its blood is poisonous. Also very similar to Godzilla. In a lot of scenes we see Godzilla's blood, which actually is coolant fluid. So because, as I said in this movie, Godzilla is a literal nuclear reactor. And so in a lot of scenes we see his blood floating out, and and just like the poisonous blood of Hydra, Godzilla's blood is also poisonous, as it is radioactive, as it is his coolant fluid. So basically, Godzilla is Hydra. And that explains the final image in the very last scene in the movie that a lot of people can't understand. because in the last scene we see something. It's difficult to make out. We see something emerging from his tail, and I think that's him reproducing himself, just like Hydra does, you know. So he has the same abilities as Hydra. So yeah, it's a very very interesting movie. It's actually a very deep movie, at least for a Godzilla movie. So yeah, if you haven't seen it yet, go check it out.